Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Harem
The
Hentai Protagonist, with the hair over his eyes.
the hentai protagonist. I hope the only protagonist you're of is like the King of Fen boys, right?
Yeah, pretty much. No, I just thought it was funny. My hair was over, and I just like kept patting it down and gone as it appeared. But yeah, hey everyone. I'm Doppio, Daniel, whatever you like to call me, and I'm
Danny
joined
boy.
by yeah.
I am the great Bounty, aka Bryce, here for another frame trapped podcast.
Episode 11 to be specific.
Episode 11. 11 episodes. It's surprising that we're at 11 episodes. I thought we would quit at like 5.
I'm actually amazed we got this far doing this because this has been fun to do. But I'm like, this might end up being one of those things that we just like let on the back burner. But whenever I'm feeling like uncommitted, you help me keep happening basically, or like whenever I just forget and shit, or I have like stuff to do, I'm like, you know what? Nah, we gotta get this done. This is fun, and I like doing it.
I mean, like, it also helps me to have like more social interaction with you because I've been very busy and you've been very busy.
Yeah.
So it's nice that we can just schedule a time where we can just talk for 2 hours or so.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying this, so I'm happy that we can keep it going. And yeah, we actually, I don't know if it's as much. I don't know if we have as much to talk about as last week. Last week was really good. I was really happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a lot of interesting topics. There's been a lot in like discourse wise. Before I get to all that, we want to update the people about the graphics because I think.
Okay. So this week, I saw somebody commissioning some graphics for streams, and they were at like a price that's affordable for me. Somebody tried to convince me to spend $130 last time on just a single overlay. And this time, somebody who has done good work in the past said like $50 for a 3-cam overlay and a new 2-cam overlay. So, and I told them to make the 3-cam overlay a little bit versatile. So then when we watch videos or something on stream for the podcast, we just put them on the
3-cam and then we just put it up there.
Yeah, an empty spot. So so that'll be here soon. Soon we won't we'll actually look like a professional business, but not to say that Conway didn't do an amazing job on our graphics, but these are the equivalent of like removing the training wheels, so to speak, on our new bike.
I really like this graphic because it's cool and like Conway made it for us, and I like the names. I think we gotta keep the names no matter what because those are great. But yeah, having new graphics and stuff is hopefully gonna help ease our burden a little bit, especially having a 3-cam overlay that like works really well. Because it's just really hard to show YouTube videos as it is or do interviews and stuff, especially that we don't have a third setup for like something like that. So yeah, it's gonna be really really nice, and so look forward to that in the next coming weeks. I assume they haven't given you a date, right? Like
no, like literally, their PayPal invoice was like, this will be done in the next couple of months. If you want to have an update on it, ask me and I will give you an update in a week and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, well then.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with it as long as it like gets done and it's at the price that I wanted, about $50 to $80, So
yeah, good price for me. And we're happy to wait as long as we, because this overlay is going to be doing us a lot of favors coming. So, and it still looks amazing. So we'll wait up for it, and yeah, just expect that in the next couple months. So you guys, it'll be the first thing you see on the screen too. But yeah, moving on to topics that we have.
Our biggest point of topic, if you've been on Twitter the past week, or you've been on YouTube especially for the past week, and you follow some fighting game YouTubers or fighting game Twitter folks, free-to-play fighting games have been a point of discussion, and I'm surprised it's been contentious, because I'm sure, Doppio, you know where I lean on this. It's pretty interesting to hear everybody's takes. Basically, what we want to talk about is, are free-to-play fighting games the right way to go for fighting games? Because as we know, Project L is coming out, and we still don't know what that fighting game's price point is going to be. So what do you think, Doppio?
I think, well, firstly, I think based on what Riot's done, right? Like all of their stuff, except for like a couple things, has been free to play, right? Like there's like one like full big budget game that they have that they didn't do DLC for was like just a $60 flat price. Everything else they've done is free to play. So I'd imagine that this follows the same sort of idea, especially if it's like how modern fighting games are. The way, like, you have patches and you have DLC and stuff. What I find weird is that, especially with the fighting game roundtable when it came up, you remember how like all the guys were like, "Oh yeah, free to play fighting games. What is this fucking fuck? Or this is just a trend, bro. Like, what the fuck? It's a 10-year-long trend that's been shown, like that's been
Free to
consistently
play.
happening.
That's just gonna make our games worse.
Oh god. Dog, your games are already trash. What the
Yeah, you. Saying the thing I've been thinking out loud, literally 1-to-1. Your games are already trash, man. Okay, just accept any new technology as it's coming your way, dog.
I mean, we've seen it with rollback. We've seen it with a lot of other stuff. Fighting game devs are just very close-minded in terms of like actually progressing with modern technology, even if it fucking works, which is ridiculous. But regardless of all that, what I find the most weird about this is that most fighting games right now are operating on a free-to-play model.
Yeah.
They just don't call it a free-to-play model.
Yep.
Like Street Fighter V is essentially a free-to-play game that costs $60 to play.
True.
Right?
True. I even one time made a tweet about how, like, hey, why don't they have a battle pass system in the game already where, like, you play for a certain amount of time and then you unlock new skin outfits? And literally one of my friends responded to that tweet instantly and was like, it's already in there. It's called, like, this trial system. And you can unlock seasonal rewards for your skins. And I was like, well then why is everybody hating on free-to-play fighting games?
Yeah,
y'all are already living in it.
Yeah, like, I don't get what the big fuss is, because essentially a lot of people who even like Street Fighter V or like bought it on release were like, this game had like this game should have just been free, and then because we had to buy all the DLC one by one as they came out, like, why not just make it a free-to-play game and then charge like, I don't know, 10 per pack of character or something? I mean, obviously they need, like, the face value of it is like, yeah, they want to make money, right? Which is like, yeah, you're gonna sell us, like, it's a Street Fighter game, people are gonna buy it. But if you look to the West and you look to a lot of other like fighting games that have come out even recently, like, there are a lot of examples of like free-to-play fighting games that are actually like really good. A perfect example would be what is it? Like Killer Instinct, right? When it came out, right? Had a really smart, and I know I bring this up every single time we talk about fighting games, but it's like, it's such a good system. It's like you get the game for free, and then you pay for all the characters that you want. If you want just to play one character, then there you go. You just play your free character and it rotates, right? If you don't want to do that, you just pay for the character you like. There you go. $5, you're in, and that's your main, and you can play that character, right? And you can training room against all the other characters. Whenever there's DLC, you can training room against them. It's like, okay, well then there you go. You don't need to worry about like spending $60 on a game. And what that does is it gets more people in the door, which means more people coming to tournaments, more eyes on tournaments, more people playing, more people competing. Like, and that there will probably be more people spending the full price on your game because they just like your game. Like, they're able to try your game and enjoy your game.
And that's the biggest thing for me, is that, like, a lot of people are like will overlook fighting games because they have the $60 price tag attached, and then the player experience itself is, let's be honest, is god awful. The player experience as a new fighting game player is awful to be new at fighting games. So it's like, not only do you have this huge $60 price tag, you also have to, like, interact with the game for a certain amount of time for it to be worthwhile. And then, like, beyond that, there's also, like, controller peripheral issues. There's other stuff beyond that in order to get into this genre. And it's like, I always am of the thought of, like, making it free to play just makes it so that, like, you just take away a pain point potentially for somebody.
Yeah. I think, I mean, there's so many situations of like that happening. Like, if we were living in like Exert times or like Street Fighter 4 era, where it's like, okay, we do a big release.
Wait. Can you pause for a second? Did you just refer to Exert times as an example of a time long ago?
No, I refer to it as a time where people would release games one by one sequentially instead of doing like DLC. Like
Okay.
they do now. Like,
I was worried because I thought you were going to say...
Which was a long time ago, but yeah.
What?
It's time gone by. How many times we got to teach you this lesson? But yeah. So like in Guilty Gear Xrd era and Street Fighter 4 era, they would release like big. It's like, okay, this is the next game in the series. Big patch, and there's like a bunch of new characters, and
They were essentially like expansion packs.
but they're whole ass new games
Yeah.
that are $60.
Yeah.
Which even back then people were like, this is fucking stupid, right? But that's what they did back then. And if you try to put a free to play model to that, it kind of wouldn't work. But the way that people do fighting games now, where they have one game and then they just patch it forever, right? And that's the version you end up with is like, that's basically the same model that free to play games use. It's just that, they don't want to call it that because you have to pay for the game initially. And for some games, I think it works. Like, I wouldn't understand. Like, Skullgirls is a game that has a season pass and does that DLC thing. But I don't think you should be able to like get Skullgirls for free and then pay for the, because there's like 2 DLC characters. It wouldn't really make much sense. And the game is already so cheap that it's accessible enough to the point where like people don't mind. But something like Grand Blue, like if Grand Blue wasn't $60, that game might have a scene. No shots,
I mean,
but like
no. I mean, it does have a scene, but it's like it could be way bigger. Like
yeah.
way bigger. Out of all like the current IPs of fighting games, Grand Blue has the highest potential for being the biggest fighting game like literally ever because of how big the Grand Blue IP is. But like because the Grand Blue IP is the Grand Blue IP, they're expecting a high premium for their stuff, and it's kind of shooting them in the foot.
Yep. Same thing with Dragon Ball, kind of. Though I think Dragon Ball on release was a $60 game. If they just removed Android 16, but it was a $60 game on release, and like there are other fighting games when they release, you could say it's like worth the full price because there's a lot of content in the game already. But for games like Street Fighter V, for games like Grand Blue, for games like even Guilty Gear Strive to some extent, it's a little bit overpriced for a game that you're gonna have to pay $20 anyway for a season pass, and then you're gonna have to pay again for the next season, and at that point you're like $180 in. It doesn't really make any sense. I think we're both of agreement though that like adding that system into fighting games is A, completely unintrusive and basically the same shit that they've been doing for the past like couple of years, and B, the right thing to do. Like it's just the correct way to do it because all it does is make it better for everyone getting into it and for the people that are still.
Not to mention like literally every single other competitive video game genre has moved into this format. Like, and all of them have been successful. CS:GO, a game that came out 10 years ago, still successful. League of Legends, a game that came out almost 20 years ago, still successful. Like, I don't know how else to explain this. Like, it just feels like, it feels like we're looking at, like, the fighting game boomers, and they're the only ones who are like, but what about my training mode? I don't want to pay for characters for training mode. And then it's like, they just ignore the entire nuanced conversation of, like, we can have that conversation when we get there and create a good nuanced training mode for everybody, Like, we can have these conversations when they happen. And not to mention, like, Project L is literally being head developed by the Cannons, who have been in the fighting game community for over, like, longer than I have. Like, literally my entire lifetime. Like, 30 years.
So what was the first Battle by the Bay?
I have no idea. Like, I want to say 2003.
They've been doing this for as long as I have been alive.
Yeah, literally as long as Doppio's been alive. And, like, yet people are still like, what if they betray us? What if they make us pay X and X amount of money for each thing? And, like, not even beyond that, like, you can even look at Valorant, which is an adaptation of the tactical shooter genre, right? And they changed their free-to-play format for the tactical shooter genre. Like, for example, in Valorant, the only things that you pay for are skins. And, like, I don't have all the agents in Valorant, true, but the thing is that if I played enough, they're very generous on giving you agents in that game. Like, if I played a lot,
you easily grind to get it.
Yeah, I could easily grind to get it. And I'm not advocating for a grind to get characters in a fighting game because I don't think that's very fair. But what I'm saying is that they adapted their free-to-play format for the genre. Because in that game, all guns are available to you. You want this gun, you get that gun. You want that gun, you get that gun. And the power of that game is mostly in guns. So...
yeah, and there's, like, even if there's an agent that you really want to play that you, like, don't have, it's pretty easy to just, like, lock in and grind it out in, like, a couple, like, in about a week, you could probably get it done.
Like Chamber. When Chamber came out, I got it done in 3 days. I was like, I want Chamber really badly and got it done.
Yeah, it's like, and even the argument like, oh yeah, well they're gonna make it predatory and this is gonna be bad. It's like, dude, that's its own separate issue. That's a problem for another. Like, if they make it free to play and they make it fucked up and they make it so that you have to spend a shit ton of money on bullshit, that's a different problem. That doesn't make the system itself bad. And also, it's funny that fighting game boomers are the ones that are saying like this is bad because they played in arcades. And that's like the definition of you put a fucking quarter in the machine and you can play the fucking game.
Oh my god.
Oh what?
That's 100% true. It's like so absurd. Like the other thing is that Street Fighter 5 has already implemented so many free to play things. Like for example, did you know every year Capcom Cup part of the prize pool is supplied by the community through the Capcom Cup skins? And that's a system that almost every other esports adapted from Dota. Yeah, literally Dota. Like literally Dota, already in the game. Why are you complaining? Like, I don't know. And what's even worse about this is that even if a free-to-play fighting game comes out and it's not successful, guess what? The market just decided that we don't want that type of free-to-play game.
Yeah.
So just coming out on the onset and saying no to free-to-play games just limits fighting game growth.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I think I don't think there's going to be a world where a game like that comes out, especially Project L, and isn't successful. Like, I think the paradigm is going to shift, like, eventually, and pretty soon. It's just more of, like, why are fighting game devs so fucking kind of situation.
I don't think it's dumb. I think it's ignorant. Like, and it's not their fault that they're ignorant, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the ways that they do things, and it is what it is. But thankfully, I think it'll change very soon. It's just one of those things where you have to wait and see. And hopefully Project L does a good enough job where it like kind of motivates FGC devs to want to like.
The other thing is that with a free-to-play model, you can set aside development time for other things other than characters or stages. Because if your payment model is based on cosmetics or other types of things, you could make a fun game mode with the purpose of creating revenue. And then all of a sudden your game becomes more fleshed out. The last time a fighting game that had a fun game mode was literally Tekken 7 when it came out with Tekken Bowl.
Is Tekken Bowl fun?
It's boring. You want to see me, kid?
I've been playing with fucking Wii Sports, bro. I don't know what Tekken Bowl got on Wii Sports. No disrespect. All right, there's probably some godlike Tekken Bowl players out there, but like.
But you get my point. Where like even when Strive comes out, what's the fun game mode in Strive?
Habbo Hotel?
The last time I had fun with the game mode in a fighting game was in Soul Calibur 4 with the tower that they made in that game. Where the tower would unlock like special cosmetics, and then each round had like special challenges based on like what was going on in the match. And that was tons of fun. Like I remember,
know they did it in MK as well. Like they have the tower system.
Yeah, they have a similar one but that one's like randomly generated, not like specifically designed. But like the point still stands where it's like by having free to play, you can argue to like say your publisher and say like, hey, I want to develop this fun game mode for my fighting game, and then you can do it because it generates revenue. But like. For modern fighting games that are pay, oh, you're not developing a character? What's up with that? Characters make money. Oh, you're not developing a stage? What's up with that? Yeah. Stages make money. Like, it's just absurd.
Yeah, but hopefully that I hope that again, like you're saying, they start putting in more. This gives them the avenue to make more stuff and make fighting games more diverse and like more appealing to mass market stuff. Because that's really the problem. Like, fighting games, like in terms of systems, aren't like. I don't think they're necessarily like. I think they're the best they've ever been. Really, like if we really consider it, like some people might say, "Oh, well, like dude, the old games." Shut the fuck up, okay, dude. Look, Marvel 2 is a gacha game. Third Strike is trash. Fuck, no. But I love those games. But realistically, if you look at like the entire market, right? Like the games overall have gotten a lot better. Right, so it's not really a systemic, like an issue with the fighting game system, right, or like the gameplay loop or anything like that. It's really a problem of like accessibility and the way the games are designed, like holistically. And so addressing some of those issues.
This kind of leans into our next topic.
Oh, fighting games with no buttons?
Fighting games with no buttons. Are the devs going to do us dirty? So
no inputs?
So with free to play, of course, comes on like a whole casual market that's going to be opened up and brought into fighting games. So then we have to return to this conversation for like the 70 billionth time of simplifying fighting game inputs. Okay. Now I don't know about you, Doppio, but I've always been a proprietor of choice, where like I'd like there to be an option where like boomer mode, you know, I am a boomer, allow me to have the complicated inputs, but I'm also a proprietor of simple mode. You can have the simple mode if you want, and I won't judge you. You do whatever you want, okay? Unless it's like stylish mode in Xrd, then I'll judge you.
I was about to be like, I wonder if there's a mode like that in your favorite video game ever, right?
No, I'm not asking for stylish mode. I'm asking for like, you're both basically playing the same thing, same game, except the way you input things is different, okay? And they both have similar rules, right? So, like, to take, for example, like, in Project L, as we saw in the last trailer, they were doing, like, forward input, then button for a lot of stuff. And I'm thinking, like, what if I can do the same input, but it's a fireball motion? Like, can I have both?
Sure. I get where that's coming from. My issue with it is that once you implement the system like that, there's a problem, because the actual way the game is played changes, like fundamentally.
Sure.
There's a good example would be in DNF Duel. This is a very common thing where they let you do both, right? But why would I ever do a Shoryuken with an input when I can just hit back plus the button and then instantly react to a jump? Like, it's way faster. Why would I do it the other way? There's literally no reason to, right? So these inputs exist. Like, this is a very common argument from the camp of people who are like, inputs are good for fighting, which I agree. I think you need to have motion inputs fundamentally, or like, not that you have to, but that they actually have a function and a purpose, right? Like, there is a reason that those inputs exist, and there's a reason that they are the way they are. Because if they didn't exist, then there would be problems. If you could do one button Shoryukens or direction plus button Shoryuken, it would be a problem. Like, the game itself would like not function at certain points, right? So I think that those inputs need to exist, right? Or if you're going to try to implement a system where you can do both, you need to figure out a way where it doesn't impact the actual, like, the fundamental gameplay of what you're doing. Killer Instinct also had a system like this, where you could do a simple combo mode or a simple input mode. And it wouldn't give you the simple inputs in neutral, but when you're doing combos, the inputs would become simpler, right? So, like, and even in that game, it led to some, like, I think it led to some, like, really fucked up OS that you could do. That, like, nobody did, right? Everyone just picked the normal mode because it was kind of frowned upon, but, like, you could actually, even in the most restrictive system for that kind of input, it was still fucked up. That's how good that sort of stuff, that's how problematic that can be. So unless you build the whole game around it, right? Or kind of like what Street Fighter V did, if you have specific characters that kind of fit that role,
I think that's another thing that needs to be talked about, where like you have these specific characters. Like Xrd had, I always point new players to Xrd to Leo Whitefang every single time, because Leo Whitefang is such a great example of like, these are the fundamentals of the game. You can learn this character's combo structure in five minutes. You can do these things, and it's like, then you look at like Ed in Street Fighter V, and Ed sort of fulfills a similar role where like he has very simplified inputs. His combo structure is only built a specific way, and you don't have to deal with a lot of stuff that typically normal people have to deal with.
Yep.
And I think that's another thing that needs to be brought into the conversation of like, maybe we need to have a wider range of skill levels among characters, where like we still have very advanced skill level characters, but yet still have very low skill floor characters, right? Yeah. But it's like, then you come up to an issue of balance, which I think is a struggle for a lot of developers, where like, how do we make the advanced level characters as rewarding as the lower skill characters, which has actually come to a front in Strive versus Xrd, because in Xrd, Leo Whitefang was like solidly mid-tier.
Yeah.
But he really struggled with some of the core aspects of Xrd because he struggled to throw people. But then you look at Leo Whitefang in Strive, and he doesn't struggle to throw people, and all of a sudden he's like the second best character in the game.
Yeah, his
So
inputs
it's
are
like,
easy.
mhm.
His like combo structure is super simple. And then now in a game where everyone kind of functions in that same system, it's a problem. That's why characters like Johnny and Elphel and like Venom always generally end up being like super good characters because you can't make a character like that. Either A, they're so hard and so impractical to do the same things that simpler characters do that you would never play them, or they're so good, like they get so much reward off shit that they're the best character in the game. The fact that they can't do shit against. Like they just get so much reward off of doing it. It's almost like an impossible. I don't want to say it's impossible to balance, but it's really 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 fucking like really fucking. Um, a good example in a modern game would actually be Happy Chaos.
Mhm.
Because Happy Chaos is fucking tough. Like you have like in a game that doesn't even have like links for most combos, you have a character that has to in his B&Bs do like consistent 1 frame 2 frame links with negative edging, like your button. So and there's a buffer, but like it's still fucking annoying. It's really hard. Um, and you also have to time it because even if you let it go too early, it's fucked up. If you let it go too late, it has to be within a 1 to 2 frame. So that character has like really really hard stuff to do. But once you master him, he's the most fucked up character in the game by like far. Like even if he's not the best character, he's still the most fucked up one because he has so many things that just completely break the rules of the game and break the system that like it's very hard to fight against. Um,
So devs could definitely go that route of like we have easy characters for characters who are new to this genre, or we have advanced characters for people who are advanced to the genre. But I have issues with that because it's like I'm a very aesthetic kind of guy whenever I pick a character. Okay,
yeah,
I'm aesthetic, and then I'm also like, what does a character do? And that's what makes me want to play a character, right? So like, I don't want to be like limited by my character choice because of like a skill range thing. Like, what if they make a very low skill ceiling character that I like a lot, right? But now I'm stuck here without doing like flashy stuff that's in the advanced section, you know?
yeah.
That's what I have issues with that philosophy. But again, could we see in the future a fighting game without inputs?
Well, I mean, no buttons. But maybe I want to say that it's like a thing, like especially with DNF Duel and like with other games in that similar vein. I feel like it's something that's like slowly been like coming up, but it kind of I don't know. I don't really like it. I kind of really want there to be a like I want there to be fighting games that have like how do I say this? I think a lot of modern games coming out right now are trying to like lean more simple in terms of inputs and in terms of like the way you do things. And accessibility is good, right? There's like a certain level of accessibility that I think is like important to have. Like your game should have buffer. There's no fucking excuse for your game not to have a
What do you mean? You
uh,
don't like Accent Core?
no. Anyway, there's no excuse for your game not to have buffer. Uh, and there's really no excuse for your game not to have like at least some level of input leniency or some level of like easy combo or like a combo that like maybe isn't as optimal, but it like still gets you the same result, right? In order to help like people, sort of get things down. But in terms of like, should your games just have no advanced inputs at all, like no quarter circles, no nothing like that? The game can still be fun, and there's still definitely really hard games that have that system. For instance, Power Rangers is a great example of a game that like has fucking insanely difficult combos, even though you don't have to do motion inputs. I think there's like something that you lose there, in terms of like the feel of characters and the feel of playing the game, that I think makes it a lot. It takes something out of it, and I think there needs to be a spectrum of like different games at the very least like value
I
different.
think we're both kind of ignoring the elephant in the room right now about this. Is there's one fighting game that did master this art, and it is called Smash Brothers. And uh, it's important to look at that fighting game because, like, when you look at that fighting game from a design standpoint, where like it's kind of like akin to how in League of Legends they have each button be assigned to like a
Yeah,
different
it's
topic
every
typically.
character has the same inputs, but what moves they do are different.
But like sometimes like the Q will always be a skill shot, or like
Yeah,
the W will always be some form of AoE, and then
Yeah.
E will always be some form of utility, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Smash Brothers sort of does this in a way with its inputs, where, like, for example, if you do down smashes on most of the cast, they're typically a move that goes here, there,
Yeah.
here,
Both
there.
sides.
Or if you do an up smash, your move is either going to do this or it's going to do this. Okay?
Yep.
And then, like, if you do an F smash, it's either going to do this or it's going to do that. Okay? And it's like, I feel like if they look at Smash Brothers and how they design their animations and their how it coincides with the inputs, I feel like a breakthrough can be made. Now, of course, this does mean that you are homogenizing the game more, which could be a plus as a developer because it makes it easier to balance. But it also means that like you're losing some of that like uniqueness per character.
Yeah, which I think is also a flaw in its own. But that's a separate discussion. I do agree with you though. I think what Sakurai did with Smash 64 and then continue to do with Smash going forward is really awesome because anybody anywhere can learn the inputs for every single Smash character and then do basically all their moves, and you don't have to worry about it, right? Like you can play this character and that character and that character and that character and know that like all of the inputs that you do on the controller are the same for all the characters, right? Which is really, really good. I think it's really, really awesome. And again, the NFL did something very similar with their input, right? Where you have an up and a side and a back, or up and then a forward and a back and a down, and they all do something different, right? But they're all like all of the inputs are just that, right? And they all have a certain like the same number of special, I think. So yeah, that's cool. It's just like I don't know. I think there's something special about doing quarter circles. And I don't think it's so hard that like it's something that you should try to remove from a fighting. You know what I mean? Like people talk about gatekeeping.
I definitely think like this is a very nuanced conversation that needs to happen where it's like, for example, we've seen in Project L that like they're clearly going with a directional input plus button bias in that game. But that was like almost a year ago now, so things might have changed. But the thing is that I feel like there are two things that developers can do to fix this issue and have motion inputs still be in the game. Okay, you can have make it so that your game's better at teaching people about these inputs. Okay, and like I'm not talking about like say the Street Fighter V first time you open it up thing. I'm talking about like you really teach them the inputs. Like you spend time and like you teach them like this is a fireball. Why is a fireball important? What does it do? It clashes with other fireballs. And every single time you give an example, you make them do the input, right? Yeah. You make them really get ingrained. And I know that's like a boring way to teach people, but it's hard to teach fighting game mechanics without having like some form of like schoolroom feel of like this is a textbook and you're basically reading from a textbook.
I think you can make it more gamey, and I think some systems have made that work. But I agree with you that there's like some level of like textbookification of like at least some level of information.
But the other way that they can do this is by making inputs a little universal, making it so that like everybody has a quarter circle forward punch, everybody has a quarter circle back kick, everybody has a DP, and like everybody has these motions, right? And there's no variance. Okay, that's the key point. Is that like because then that would make it so that like players can, especially casuals, can just openly switch to different characters because it has that Smash Brothers effect where I already know the moves, but how does it apply to this character? You know?
I also think a cool system that people have talked about is like having like a little video of someone doing the input, like whenever you want to tell them to do an input, like because very commonly a problem is like people will do the input like too fast or like push the button at the same time or this and that, and unless you have someone literally tell you, hey, do the input and then press the button, or like look at your hands at what you're doing and be like, hey, you're not doing this correctly. It's very hard for like a first time learner to be like, wait, what the fuck? Like, why is this not working? Right? There's a little bit of that, and also watching people do the inputs makes it significantly easier. Like, I've noticed this with people who like want to learn keyboard, where it's like, what the fuck am I even doing? Like, how do I do this? But when you see someone do it, it makes perfect sense. You're like, oh, okay. One, hold the second one, and then let go of the first, and then bam, you throw a fireball, right? Really, like, I think having that sort of video in there embedded of like someone doing the move is way easier to understand than like having someone explain it to you or like written out, right? Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just how I am. But I've seen it work with a lot of other people, and I think
The biggest thing is that like I don't think there's a single fighting game that gives strong feedback based on what you do. Like this is going to be a very far reach, okay? But in Spider-Man 2, the video game on the PlayStation 2, okay? For those that don't know, I believe the announcer for that game is Sam Raimi himself. Like he does all of the announcement voice
I think
for that
so.
game.
I feel like
And in the training mode for that game, every single time that you mess up an input, like for example, a big thing in the tutorial is teaching you how to web swing because web swinging is important in the game, right?
Yeah.
Now, every single time that you fall off the building, you die and you lose, and then you respawn back at the top of the building, and then Sam Raimi makes fun of you. Okay?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that you should make an announcer that makes fun of your players, right? I'm just saying that you should create failure states that create a feedback loop for your players. Because I have not seen a single fighting game do that for their players when learning. Like, the only thing that comes close is like the mission modes in Exerd where like you get failure and it says failure and that's it, and it's like not only is it good because it creates more character for your game, because like wait, the Exerd tutorial mode is pretty good, but it doesn't go in depth because like you have Soul Bad Guy going like good job and stuff like that, but it's not specific.
Yeah, it's not very specific, and to get to a lot of the nitty gritty, you have to do like the mission mode, which is not super accessible to someone who might not know about. Which like I get what you mean.
But like for this tutorial mode, just make like really creative use of having a narrator teach their player. Like if the training mode notices that they're pressing the button too early, have the announcer tell them, "Hey, you're pressing the button too early," or "Hey, you're pressing the button too late." You know, like there's an extreme variance of a lot of these things, and I don't know how hard it would be to code a tell for this to tell when an input's off or not. But
it's not that hard to tell if like to code a fail state in a game. It's really, you just look and see, is this certain sequence running? If not, then like play X. If not, then play Y. Right? Then like it's like it's not super difficult, and like a lot of these are big budget companies. So like I don't think it's necessarily a resource issue. I think it's more of a they don't know, they're not really particularly sure how to, or they feel as though their system already is. And I don't want to shit on the companies for this. I think this is like a super hard thing to get right. In terms of like teaching people how to play your games, teaching your people the people that are playing your game how to do inputs. It's not like a science, so it's really hard to know what would work. But again, I think fundamentally, there isn't really a lot of problems with motion. I think it's more of a stigma than anything. But I think that having games that are just direction plus button does help ease people into it, and having a more Smash-like system in your inputs, like having a more homogeneous system where every character has similar inputs and they're easier inputs than most fighting games, it's a super solid idea that I think helps make the games more accessible and make it easier for a newcomer to understand, right? Even if doing quarter circles is easy, doing direction plus button is easy, right? And having those systems isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, accessibility is always so.
But before we move on, I just want to reiterate again, feedback, guys. Feedback is the most important. If a new player gets feedback, they'll be eased into it better. Like, if I can play Spider-Man 2 for the PS2 and die and get made fun of and then continue to beat Spider-Man 2 for the PS2, then I feel like new players to fighting games wouldn't be that discouraged either if they had a funny announcer making fun of them either. So, I'm just saying, give good feedback.
Yeah. I mean, this is actually a discussion that comes up a lot in terms of like the input stuff, which segues pretty good in our next topic about cyclical discussion. I've been seeing this a lot, and it's made me kind of cynical in terms of like fighting game discourse. And I imagine you probably feel the same way. And I'm not someone who gets very cynical often. It's very like it's very specifically this because you see it all the fucking time about the same issues, and it feels as though people just like I mean people are bored on Twitter. That's kind of the moral of the story, but like it's kind of ridiculous at some points, and I think for certain discussions it makes it a lot more confusing to like parse certain. But I don't know. You go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
So last week I made a tweet, okay, a very particularly funny tweet that said, "God, I hate talking to fighting game players." Okay, now the depth of that tweet isn't that like I hate talking to fighting game players because or else I wouldn't have made a podcast about it. It's just that like I hate specific interactions in the fighting game community, and this cyclical discussion is one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So a big issue in the fighting game scene is that like, especially because we're in like a Neo era of fighting game players, because Strive is a completely new game. It's not like the old Guilty Gear versions. If we said it was like the old Guilty Gear versions, we'd be liars. Okay. Yeah. So it created a lot of new players coming in. Okay. Grand Blue Versus brought in a lot of new players in because they're Grand Blue players, right? So we just have this consistent stream of new players entering the scene that's more than I've ever seen in my life, especially after DBFZ. Okay.
Yeah, DBFZ was kind of the catalyst too.
Yeah, and like this is creating a lot of like, hey, let's bring up this discourse again, right? And let's bring up this discourse again, and it creates what I call the cyclical discussion points of the FGC. And we actually went over two of them, which is free to play fighting games and taking out and making inputs easier for casuals, right?
Yeah.
And the big reason why I made that tweet on fighting games, I don't like talking to fighting game players, is because like I know people are bored on Twitter, but like a big thing that I've felt because I've been in the FGC for like 13 years is that like I feel like FGC folks are really defined by their FGC branding. Right? If you know what I mean. Where like this is their personality. Like this is a part of who they are. That's their thing, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But the issue is that when we come up to these cyclical fighting game topics that me and you have already discussed multiple times on end, we groan and sigh and go, ugh, this again. But the thing is that there's a young FGC member who's completely new who's like, oh, I've never heard of this topic. Let me hear everybody's opinion.
Okay? That's right.
And it's not that aspect I hate. I hate the fact that like we can talk about these topics and some people will not see the nuance in these topics. Yeah. Like for example, I was talking about Strive last week on Tuesday at my Strive local that I run. Okay. And I was talking about how RPS heavy the game is. Okay. And one of the FGC guys, who wasn't even a part of the conversation, was just sort of outside, he was playing casuals, shouts, oh, you haven't seen Melty Blood then. And I'm like, and I'm just like, I'm groaning, I'm like hee-hawing, I'm like, I'm doing the entire book. I'm like, I literally wanted to be like, we're talking about Strive, buddy, not Melty Blood, okay? And the worst part is that I was like giving Strive a lot of compliments. I was like, I love playing the neutral. I love doing all this. But the thing is that this is what I'm talking about. Like when we not to make fun of anybody who's new in the FGC, but when we talk about these people who are new in the FGC, where it's like when we're trying to talk about the game itself, they always try to bring up other games and they always feel the need to defend their game. And I'm like, that's not the point, buddy. I'm not trying to argue with you whatsoever. I'm just trying to, like, talk about things that I like about the game, you know? And that's why I made that tweet where I'm like, God, I hate talking to fighting game players because consistently fighting game players can have this attitude of wall up, defend my game, and stuff like that. But, like, when you get past a certain point in the FGC, you start not giving a shit about that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry I'm staring into the abyss right now. I'm staring into God's light, but I'm looking for strength right now.
after hearing that comment on Melty Blood.
Motherfuckers will really be like, bro, I can't fucking understand Marvel. This shit's so broken. I mean, I like fucking, he like slaps me in, and he just touches me and 50-50s me, and he takes my whole team. And then they'll be like, oh my god, bro, Melty Blood is so dumb. Oh, I have to cycle my 6 defensive options and like think on offense? Like, bro, what the fuck? Why is this game so trash?
What's even worse is that I wasn't even talking about like defensive situations in Strife. I was talking about like offensive situations in Strife.
No, Melty Blood is, in some regard, like offensively and defensively RPS heavy. But that just means you have to think on offense. These motherfuckers don't want to think on offense. They want to be monkey brain. And then when you tell them, hey, okay, if you like offense, and there's nothing wrong with liking strong offense. There's nothing wrong with liking offense where like you're like in a consistent advantage. But then don't fucking make fun of Marvel. What the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Like, dude.
But yeah, that's what I mean by like discussing FGs all the time is a pain. And sometimes I just want to bring up Spider-Man 2 from 2004 on the PS2, or the other night when I joined a voice call in the Guilty Gear Exert server and was like, yo, Epic Mickey 2 though, come on, dog. Shit like that. And I'm like, the point of this discussion is that if you're new in the FGC, just remember, these are video games, okay? And remember, just don't have your entire personality be surrounded by this, and explore other things. Make sure to bring up other topics with your friends and all that.
I agree. I don't think it's necessarily a problem with newer players. Like Timmy coming in and being like, hey, let me understand this thing is not a bad thing at all. It's really not. Like if someone genuinely came up to me and was like, I feel as though Melty Blood is RPS and it feels really bad for me. And I would, if someone literally came up to me straight face and told me that and wanted to have a conversation with me, I would be delighted. I would sit down and I would tell that person, look, I completely understand where you're coming from and your feelings and your opinions are valid, right? But there are some people who prefer offense in that style where you have to think about the offensive you're making, and the risk return is much more balanced in terms of the defender and the offender as opposed to other fighting games, right? Like Guilty Gear, like Marvel, like Skullgirls, where the offender is most often in an advantage, right?
Like Scuggies.
Huh?
Nothing.
Fucking. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's spitting though. But like, God, I hate you. I'm on my train of thought, and you hit me with the fucking mid podcast, dude. I'm not even trying to vlog. Anyway, no, but he's spitting. I would like to have that conversation, right? I think the problem is newer players or older players doing the shit that you're talking about, where it's like I'm trying to have a reasonable discussion about something interesting and something like, reasonable. And hey, maybe my opinion is coming from a place that isn't maybe the best, right? Or whatever. But at least I'm trying to understand. And these motherfuckers will just throw a rock. They'll be like, fuck your game and fuck you. You deserve you have no right.
That's exactly the type of mentality I'm talking about when we talk about these cyclical FGC discussions, is that like a lot of them just like, I know it's because of the culture that we live in where having outrageous takes gets the most clicks and therefore the most traction and therefore the most interaction. But it's like when we are face to face, okay, and I am trying to have a conversation with you, you don't need to bring up how RPS heavy Melty Blood is. For the love of God.
Hey man, I'm a really big fan of Skullgirls, but I don't really play Guilty Gear like that. Fuck you. You're not talented. I'm talented.
That shit is so wild to me, you know?
It's crazy.
And it's like those small things that like maybe make that tweet where it's like, oh, I hate this, but it's like, in reality, I don't hate talking to fighting game players. It's just aspects of talking to fighting game players I hate.
Yeah, and I think a good asterisk is like, this is not a majority of people. This isn't even like I went to locals, right? And I was playing locals, I was playing Skullgirls, and there was KOF there, and there was a bunch of different people playing games. There was nobody like this. The only person that was remotely like this was one person who was like, to be honest with you, I fucking hate Skullgirls. I'm just here because I want to play friendlies. I want to play Xrd. I'm like, I respect that. I respect it. You're at your local, you're supporting your local, and you're trying to play your friendlies, even though you don't like the game. That's fine. You can have your opinion, right? That's totally okay, right? And I have my friends that are like, oh, Skullgirls is such a fucking meme game. I'm like, okay, dude, sure. If you don't want to play it, fine. Just don't knock me, all right? I'm just trying to have a good time. But when there's motherfuckers out there, and I know these people exist in real life, and there's a lot more on Twitter, just like throw a rock, like fuck your game. It's your opinion is wrong and you're invalid because X thing. It's like, dude, you're just reiterating the same shit that you heard on a different streamer's channel. Fuck up out of here. It's like, dude, it's really dead. But I think there is something to be said though about discussions in terms of like even stuff that's been said, because I think you can gain a lot of information about talking about, like, if you throw out an opinion on Twitter, you're gonna get a million responses back, and it's gonna be kind of hard to parse through the noise. But if you sit down with someone and you actually talk to them about something, I think you learn a lot more about stuff than you would normally. For instance, me, remember when we talked about Snap in DBFZ, and you were like,
and how you loved it, and you're like, you created such cool mix, cool interaction, bro.
Look.
And I'm over here like watching the mix set up 6 times in a row, and I'm like, this match should have been over already.
Here's the point of it. I thought it was fine because it was at least some sort of strong offense in a game where defense was super fucking strong. Your opinion was that it just made the game super fucking lame.
Let's just take this conversation and bring it to what it really is about, okay? I'm like Ariana Grande, where I just want thank you next, okay? And you're like Rihanna, where you need whips and chains.
I respect the effort.
That's what this conversation is.
You tried. And that was good. Fine. Yeah, I'll give you that one. That's okay. It wasn't the best pop culture reference, but it was close. I'll give. That's like a solid. I feel in a light.
I feel like for my age, I deserve a 9 out of 10.
That's fair. Yeah, I'll give you a light for your age alone. I give you a solid 7, maybe a light 8, but I give you a solid 7 on that one. That was pretty good. It's pretty good. But sure, fine, right? I get it. The point is that we disagree on something. And we had like a 2-hour-long conversation about this, right? But it was fine because even if we disagree, even if there's like a fundamental disagreement in the way that we think about fighting games, at least we can understand. Like, I understand where you're coming from, and I think you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
right?
Because you value like cool mix and cool options that you can do on offense, and I'm over here like, I want the game to be over.
And the way I would put it is that I want there to be a certain level of like offensive power in a game, right? That the defender cannot react to, right? And a person to be able to set up strong situations. And you want the game to be fair and balanced, even though the game is going to be broken fundamentally no matter what, right? But at least we somewhat understand each other. At a base level, we understand each other. And we can have that discussion. It's just when you take that and then you have someone throwing fucking monkey wrenches from the back, saying random ass bullshit, it just makes everything more confusing. So I think keeping the discussion clear and about a topic, and not just like throwing in random buzzwords or random like phrases that you heard on some other streamers, like you know, whatever
on
the
their
fuck.
TikTok,
yeah.
On their WhatsApp.
Yeah. Oh, WhatsApp. All fighting game players are on WhatsApp. It's a CS:GO. But yeah. Speaking of discussion though, and new discussions that I have not heard before, because this is a discussion that kind of exists in a lot of ways, but I've never heard it brought up in the way that it would. And it is on Lord Knight was talking about this. Lord Knight had an excellent video. And as many of you guys know, I'm a big fan of Lord. Lord Knight had a video about his sort of like progression through the FGC. Why are you smoldering?
I don't know. I'm just trying to do a funny face.
But yeah, like he had a discussion about the 5 stages of his fighting game like experience, right? And it was like the newcomer arc, the come up arc, the I'm fucking angry arc, or no, the I'm fucking sad arc, the I'm fucking angry arc, and then that, right, or whatever. I don't remember, but the point is like it was his progression through fighting games, and he had a point that he brought up about DBFZ, which was like he had this opinion in Xrd that like, oh, dude, these games are beautiful. Why don't they make an anime fighting game, like a fighting game based on an anime, right? Because they would make millions doing that. And then they talked about DBFZ, and then it was like, oh shit, this is like the fighting game. This is what's gonna make fighting games explode, like anime fighting games explode. And the way Lord Knight described that game was like, it's Duty Fighter. Like I have to play this, right? This is the game that I have to play. Not necessarily because of quality, but because this is what's gonna make the scene what it is, right? And he was like, and to quote his video, he was like, there was just one problem. The game fucking sucked. It was trash, right? Like, and Season 1 Dragon Ball had a lot of problems. Notably, it was like Android 21 Infinites, Android 16, a lot of different shit that was problematic. But the interesting thing that he was like, okay, I'm gonna still stick through it because Duty Fighter, because I have to play this game, because I have to make sure that I'm here when the game gets, or when the game is big, right? While the game is big and I can make my right. He didn't say money, but it's kind of what was implied, right? And I was like, huh, that's interesting. Like, he genuinely played this game, not necessarily because it was his favorite fighting game, because he felt as though it would be like his best opportunity for income. And I heard a similar thing from people talking about Super Noon. I was talking to a friend about Ram, and I'm like, he was like, yeah, nobody has fun playing this character. I'm like, Super Noon fucking likes this character. He's like, Super Noon does not like this character. I'm like, why? He's like, Super Noon has admitted on stream and on many different videos, I don't like playing Ram. I play this fucking game because it's the biggest fighting game, right? It's what makes the money, right? And to me, that's like a little bit interesting, right? Because I would never, as a casual, right? Like as a guy who just plays games because he enjoys them, it's not something you necessarily think of, like what fighting game has the most income. Maybe you think what fighting game has the most players, right? What fighting game has most like available scene in your local area, but not like, what am I gonna get income on? And that made me think, like, what reasons do people have for playing certain games over others, other than fun, right? Because like I said, like there's the whole thing about tournament scenes, and there's the whole thing about like what games are available to you and what games have the biggest scene. But I've heard a lot of different things, and I wanted to know like what your opinion is. Or if you want, I can start on this because I have a lot.
I thought I had a specific answer for what you're talking about, but now I'm like, I don't really have a specific answer. But it's like, in my experience, when I started playing Xrd, I played it because one, it had a lot of players, because it's the most popular anime fighting game of that time. And then two, I played it because it had a character I liked. Okay? But the thing is that as I get older, I'm starting to value different things in fighting games. Like, for example, I'm starting to really value the neutral experience of Street Fighter games more, because I'm tired of having such niche character-to-character interactions ruin my run in a tournament bracket. I'm tired of it. Right?
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm also wanting to play Street Fighter because I know the Street Fighter age group skews older, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to interact with people my age, and I'm tired of interacting with, although Strive is not put your hand down. But like, Strive players are typically skewing pretty young because they come from DBFZ and Grand Blue Versus, and it's like, not to mention, like, I myself as a person has matured differently, and I don't really like anime anymore at all. And then I also like what's it called? I have an issue where interacting with anime fans, especially like really hardcore anime fans, where like they'll pull out their phones and they'll just talk about gacha for an hour and a half, and I cannot relate to that whatsoever. Like, absolutely not. I remember back in Texas, I would invite people to my house, and they would just sit on my couch right next to me and just talk about gacha, and I'd be like, and then they would talk about the newest seasonal anime, and I'd be like, well then, and then they would talk about the newest, like, really shit JRPG. Like, and I'm not talking about high quality JRPG, I'm talking about those really shitty ones that come out once a year, And then they sit on the couch and talk about that, and I'm like, how do I relate to these people? So I guess for me, personally, it's the people that makes me want to play a game, because, like, my motivation has shifted to a point where, like, I'd rather interact with people who have, like, the same thoughts and feelings that I do than play a game for its mechanics or money. But that being said, though, I have been caught on record saying that when Project L comes out, I will be labbing the shit out of it and playing a lot of it because I want to get money out of coaching. Because, one, I do legitimately enjoy coaching players in fighting games. And two, Look at League of Legends. Look at Valorant. Look at
Yeah.
the amount of money that can be made from coaching. Like, come on.
Here's my question to you though: if you didn't like the game, would you coach people in it if it were to pay you?
Yeah, I would still. It would just become a win-win. You know.
Yeah. So at that point, that would be your duty fighter. This is like this. I need to do this.
Well, at that point, I wouldn't call it a duty fighter because like it's a win-win because I like the game and then I also like.
No,
get
but I'm
money
saying if
from
you
it.
didn't like the game, like if you did not like,
If I did not like the game, it definitely would become a duty fighter where it's like, it's not like I have to do it. It's more so like I'm doing it because I want something else out of it, other than the game.
yeah. So that's like the idea that I kind of gather from what a lot of people. It's interesting to me as a person who like very commonly people say that there's like no money in the FGC, right? Like which is
There is money in the FGC. It just is in very specific games every generation. Like for example, right now the games to play are Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, Strive,
yeah.
and that's it. Whereas if you think about this a generation before, it was Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, that's it. So it's like Strive is only getting success because Street Fighter 5 is on its like back end, like it's about to be finished.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, of course, the people who have been playing Street Fighter 5 for so long are going to play Strive because the neutral inherently and some of the decision making that you make on defense and offense is very similar to that game. So
And it's just a bigger game.
yeah, and it's a bigger game. So it's like it's very easy for Street Fighter 5 players to go to Strive, and then all of a sudden all that money comes in from those people, right? And then the other thing is that like the development of world tours in other games has been pretty big. Like for example, $250,000 for this upcoming Arc World Tour.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not saying that like you can make a legitimate career out of fighting games nowadays, but
You can.
it's
On top of, we're not. I mean, obviously, you can't make a career just competing with no sponsor, but I think you can make a career out of fighting.
what I'm thinking about is like the old, like, you know how M2K was known as like the only Smash player to be like, I literally just go to events
Yeah, because you
and
just
ma-
go to
and
tournament,
make my
win all of them, and make all the money.
and make
Yeah.
all. I'm not. You can't do that as a fighting game player. I feel, but what you can do is become a content creator and a high level player very easily and make pretty good money.
Yeah. Or I think if you get, I mean, certain players that are sponsored, I think you can. It's possible.
Mhm.
It's just that like, it's really hard. Like you have to be playing and traveling very often, and learning. Yeah, I think you can do it full time if you're content creating and you're competing, and especially if you're doing it in a big game like Strive or Dragon Ball, as Lord Knight was for a while. It's possible. It's definitely possible. I think what's interesting for me as someone who's like outside of that is like a part of me like hurts, like it makes me sad that certain people don't play the games that they want to play. They play the games that they have to, even if they want to promote other games, right? Like even if there are other games that they feel as though are like better or they have more fun playing, they just feel like they are basically forced into playing games that they might not want to play as much because it makes them. I feel that's kind of sad in terms of like not necessarily that, like, oh my god, you're such a sad person, how dare you, like why would you do this to yourself, like that's pitiful. It's more like it sucks that they can't do what they want, right? Like it fundamentally I wish that everyone who wants to play whatever game could play the game that they want to do and make a living off of it, right? But that's not the world we live in, right? Like at the end of the day we have to just accept that. What I think is more interesting too is that there's a lot of reasons that people state that you should play a game or shouldn't play a game that kind of don't matter, right? Like when I was talking to a couple friends, and this is another discussion that came up that's kind of cyclical, and it's about Evo pre-reg numbers. I know you've probably seen some shit about this, and it was, man, it's kind of crazy how Skullgirls has less players than MK. Why the fuck are you playing Skullgirls? You shouldn't be playing a dead game.
Oh my god.
And I'm like,
The same conversations every
What?
year.
bro, and then I saw another tweet the day of, fighting game players don't know what a fucking dead game is. Like, dude, it's ridiculous.
For things in context, like I'm pretty active in the Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2 server. You're pretty active in the Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2 server.
not that
and
active.
and that server gets like, I mean, that game gets, I want to say 60 players a week.
Yep.
Like 60,
I reckon
and it's going down. It's slowly going down.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just like, hey man, like, can't we all just enjoy our game, please?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Some people might call Xrd a dead game. It has a consistent tournament scene with people that play it every single week, that play it in tournament, that like host tournaments for it, that get viewership. Like there's people that still play it every, like, you know, they played a shit ton. There's people in that server. There's people that play on Pat the Flip stream and shit. Like there's people running events for the game. I don't think you could call that game a dead game. I really don't think so. I think if you're looking at you know, fighting games, you're like, okay, this game doesn't have an audience. You can say, I don't know, fucking.
The only fighting game I'll accept as dead game is Dead or Alive Final Round 5, because they literally there's no online multiplayer for that game.
Oh, yeah, okay, that game's dead. But there's a game that's less dead, but it's still. And you just can't tell Conway I said this, but it's a Million Arthur Arcana Blood. It's a shame. It's a real shame. Yeah, that game is dead. But anyway, the point is, calling Skullgirls a dead fucking game is the most backwards, ridiculous bullshit I've ever heard. And on top of that, to insinuate that someone should play games based on Evo pre-reg numbers is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard.
It really is. It really is. Like, a big thing that fighting game players don't understand, that, like, if you enter an online tournament for a fighting game, you're probably in the top 10% of fighting game player base in terms of skill.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the bronze statistics for Street Fighter V is like 80% of the player base is in bronze.
Yeah.
Which is like, so like, who cares about Evo registration numbers? That's probably like the 1% is enters Evo.
Yeah, like it's not indicative of the actual scene itself. I mean, if you look at sales, I think Skullgirls has like more sales than like most of those games, right?
Yeah.
I think it's more than Granblue, more than a lot of other stuff, right? But it's like, yeah, it's just really not indicative. And even if your game isn't on the Evo roster, that doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be playing that game. Unless you really want to go to Evo and compete on a big stage, right? It doesn't really matter to you. No, not that. And again, that's not to say that if you want to compete, if it genuinely is a goal of yours to compete and do well in the biggest game at Evo, then by all means do that. But I don't think that other people should be insinuating to people who already play a game, hey, quit that game, it fucking sucks. It has the lowest registration to Evo. That's fucking stupid. That's just fucking stupid. But again,
no, man,
this is like the idea of duty
quit that game.
Huh?
Quit that game, dog. Yo, quit Skugs, okay?
Fucking, I swear to God. Quit, bro! Quit! I know I'm from the West Coast, but I want to give you some advice. Oh, my fucking God, Porto. But anyway, yeah. Basically, my point in all this is that, like, the idea of, like, Duty Fighter is, it's a little bit harrowing, but it's interesting in terms of, like, understanding why fighting game players might pick games that they play, right? But also, I think inventing reasons to play fighting games that are completely estranged from the fun you have with them is a little bit like, you know, it's a little bit sad. I think it sucks because I don't think that's the kind of discourse that people should be having, and I don't think that's the kind of thing that people should about games that they like, right? But yeah, I think and talking about fighting games that are alive, I wanted to bring up a whole scene of fighting games. A lot of people say are dead, and I'm a little bit confused on and I kind of wanted to know what you had to say about it. Which has to do with the arcade scene of fighting games, right? Or like the arcade scene in general, because there are like a lot of like people say that like arcades are dead or arcades are dead. And like yeah, but there are still a lot of arcades out there that have fighting games like Cap and stuff like that, right? Because it's sort of that like retro culture of stuff, and it's pretty low cost to like buy an arcade machine, have it there getting revenue, right? Because you might have a couple players that come in and play, right? That kind of thing. And so I don't think it's necessarily dead, but I understand the idea of why it's not played as much. I went to there's an arcade local in my area in Burbank, California, Round One Arcade, right? And there's a lot of arcades in Southern California. But that one has a couple Marvel cabs, and a Street Fighter 4 cabs, a Street Fighter 5 cabs, right? And I always thought, like, you know, it's really hype when you can go to the arcade and play, right? And like, play games. Like, why don't people do this more? And I realized it's because nobody fucking does. Because nobody goes to the arcade to play fighting games, there's nobody at the arcade if you want to go to play fighting games. And especially if you're trying to find people of your skill level, it's really hard to know, like, hey, I can go on this day and meet this person and play this person that is my skill level, and I can level up with them, right? And at the end of the day, it's just one person, right? So in terms of like the accessibility of fighting games, arcades are accessible in terms of like going and like, you know, putting in a quarter, sliding a card, and being able to play. But in terms of actually like improving, it's one of the worst ways. And it's also really, really fucking difficult to even like get your foot in the door, right?
I have a funny story about this, actually.
Oh, really? Hit me.
Yeah, so way back when Arc System Works wouldn't release their games like worldwide at like nearly the same time,
Yeah.
Central Fiction for BlazBlue was out in arcades. Okay? And mind you, Essential Fiction came out with Naoto Shirogane, you know, the red blood man, right?
Yep.
And my friend paid $50 at an arcade cabinet to spend an extended period of time to learn the Naoto combos. Okay? And you understand why they're $50, because the Naoto combos are hard. They're very hard. Okay? But the thing is that he was like expecting the game to come out for another like 2 months in the West. It was a whole nother year. Whole nother year, yeah, and he spent $50 on an arcade cab trying to learn combos because his local arcade got the arcade cabinet for Central Fiction before it was even out in the West. So
that's what you do, right? And I assume that's also what a lot of Japanese players do, because even they don't have console version. Like, there's no JP console version for a lot of games, right? When they drop, or at that time at least, right? So if you want to learn the game, you're dropping like $50, $60 on one session on a cab. It's like fucking crazy. And I get why that culture sucks, but there's also a part of it that's like really cool, right? There's a reason I built a cab. And there's a reason that a lot of other people build a cab, right? Even if they're not like coin-op cabs, even if they're not like cabs that you have to do anything to like play, there's still a certain feel of playing on an arcade machine and playing with someone there that's so wholly unique to fighting games and to that culture of like arcade fighting games that I think people still do it anyway. And I think there's a case to be made that like I think that culture will survive forevermore, because there will always be people who want to preserve it, right? The documentary that there was a documentary that Yipes and a lot of the East Coast people were a part of by NBC, which was about arcade culture and like arcade, like the sort of like the original thing of esports, like the original sort of like
the OGs.
Yeah, the OGs basically, yeah. But that idea, that idea of like, okay, esports started in this culture, and then them talking about it, like, yeah, this is where we were from, this is what we did, this is how we sort of became who we are today. I feel like there will always be those kinds of people who preserve that culture, who preserve that sort of idea of like this is what fighting games was, and this is what fighting games is, right? Even when those people are like gone, right? There will be people who understand that implicitly, and I think will want to carry that. Right?
What's weird about this is that I feel like the culture has shifted, actually, because I don't think you've experienced this, but because of the rise of nerd culture in the West, right, being more mainstream, it's actually created this weird pocket where bars have started becoming more arcade bars, right? So, like, for example, back in Texas, I used to have an arcade bar that was like literally a block away from my house, and I'd go there all the time, right? So, but it would still have like the essential like arcade roots, but it was still a bar, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, I also moved out here to Utah, and in Salt Lake City, we have our locals, the Get Good locals, at a bar, that is also an arcade, right? So it's like it's interesting to think that like maybe the culture has just shifted to the point where like arcade machines are more so like adult oriented machines instead of being like sort of like child like areas
Yeah.
like malls or something like that, you know?
They're not in like your local liquor store or something, or like in a bodega or something, right? But they're in places where like the people who might remember them or might have fond memories or are part of nerd culture, who especially nowadays actually tend to be older, right? Like more and more people who are like a part of sort of fighting game culture or anime culture and those kinds of things. While there are a lot of like young new people in it, a lot of those people tend to be a little bit older, right? Older than me, like generally. Um, and so having them at places like bars and stuff like that also helps with like overhead, right? Like a lot of times just doing arcade machines is not going to make you enough money to like keep a scene alive, but doing
Yeah.
food, doing drinks, stuff like that helps circumvent those costs a ton, right? And it makes it a good investment for like someone who's maybe like running a bar or running a place where they do food and stuff. It's just smart. And so I feel like it's a culture that will kind of like stick around, even when maybe when
I actually think with the rise of esports, it's actually I don't think it's going to explode, but I think it's going to find a good solid niche for it to
Yeah.
like return in some form. Like I know for a fact that like every single world championships for every single esports events, there's always watch parties, right?
Yep.
And having a venue for a watch party is always going to be nice. So it's like
Yeah. I think especially with Evo, the way that they're doing it now, and Combo Breaker too, it's like having this area where you can go and there's going to be a shit ton of cabs. I mean, that's basically just an arcade at a tournament venue, right? Like,
yep.
you couldn't ask for anything better, right? And I think that in and of itself proves that, like, yeah, this will definitely. I hope this is like a small dream of mine and a little bit more personal. I hope that at some point, me personally, I can open an arcade or like something similar in Cali. I would love to do something because there are arcades in Cali, but I want something that's more like fighting game oriented, specifically. That could be like a barcade style kind of thing. I don't know, but it's just like always been a.
One of the coolest experiences I had in Texas was like Texas is actually home to one of the largest places for pinball, and it was called the Nickel-Rama, and each pinball machine only costs a nickel to use, and they had like over like I think 90 machines, like for pinball. And it was awesome. Like I literally had like I could pick like 3 or 4 of my favorites and just spend hours and hours on like this one pinball machine, right? And it's just tons of fun. And like I'm hoping that like eventually like that type of niche returns where like pinball is cool again. Even though I know nobody knows how to play pinball. Trust me, it's cool.
I think pinball has its niches, and a lot of people do play. That Festival of Fights tournament I went to, this one. It was also there's half of it was a pinball, which is really cool.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think I think we're both of agreement. Like these niches will have a place. They're a little bit smaller than they were back then. They're not as prolific, but they still have a place, like sort of carved out in society, where people who do enjoy them will go play them.
But
yeah,
anyway, as we wind things down, we're gonna go into our more personal topics. Yet again, we can't go a week without talking about MMOs.
Classic.
Today, Blizzard announced the new expansion for the new MMO. I mean, for World of Warcraft, and it's as everybody guessed, it's a dragon themed expansion. The expansion is called Dragonflight. The zones look gorgeous. They look absolutely incredible. There's a tundra zone with snowy mountains and fjords. There's a plains zone with centaurs and just centaur runners. There's a mountainous zone where the dragons all convene, and supposedly there's like that's where the brown dragonflight, for those that don't know, they control time, and that's where they manage the timeline for all of Azeroth. But yeah, it's pretty. I'm pretty cautiously optimistic. They revealed a new race, which can only be one class, which is a dragon race, and they can only be this class called Evokers. And I have to be honest, I think the dragon race is ugly. It's very ugly. Like I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit skeptical on it, but I know it's really early. Like I doubt this expansion is going to come out until like middle of next year. So
I'm looking at the zones right now, and you are spitting. These are fucking amazing.
yeah, they actually look awesome.
I'm not even a big fan of WoW's like art style, and I still think these things look awesome, fucking next level. But you're right, WoW dragons do look kind of fucking.
The race looks ugly. Like if you have it on stream, you should definitely show what the race looks like because they actually. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking.
This? I don't know if I can. Hold up.
Let me just pull up your stream right now.
Yeah, I think it might. I don't know if I'm doing this, but I might be doing. Chaos Code's pretty dead. I see you come away.
But no, that's the standard Dragonflight. So what you want to look up is just look up World of Warcraft Dragonflight, and it should be like the main Blizzard website.
This one?
Yeah. And then just go to like the Blizzard website.
Oh, it's on Twitter. My bad.
Oh yeah, that's their Twitter. I guess there should be a preview on Twitter. If you want to look at, yeah, right there. Yeah, that's the main website right there.
This is the website. Okay, I'll just click on this one and then take a look. My stream is also delayed as fuck. So
I know.
Okay, yeah, these. Wait, this is the race, right? You might you'll see it in a second.
Yeah. That's the race.
Bro, what the?
I'm like, they look garbage. They look absolute garbage.
They look like Gex with wings.
Basically, I'm like, I don't know what they were thinking because like they have like a Draconids in the game that exist, and it's not this bad. But like, the zones look gorgeous though. Like I said, the zones look incredible. They have a special mount in the game that moves like a real dragon would. Like so you can dive bomb and then you go like this, you know, and you can do like twirls and shit and stuff like that. And it's fully customizable dragon that you just get in this expansion. And it's like, oh my, that just sounds incredible to play. They are reworking the talent trees, which I'm excited about because a big thing that I have issues with for the class design in WoW is that they are very focused, right? So like back in the day, you would play like, for example, a Frost Death Knight, right?
Yeah.
And your Frost Death Knight would of course have Frost spells, but you would also have like basic Death Knight like Plague spells as well. But in Legion, they decided to just really hone in on like what each specialization does. So the Frost Death Knights don't have any plagues anymore. They just do frost stuff, which made me very sad because I like the plagues, you know?
Yeah.
I like it when I hit somebody very hard and then as they are walking away from me, they die because they were diseased. Yeah, exactly. That shit cracks me up every time. So, but the reworked talent tree system looks like they're going to give you that ability again to be like, no, I want more plagues on my Frost DK. You know, stuff like that. But I'm cautiously optimistic for this. The cinematic was good. Like, I don't want to say it was great, but it was good. But yeah. World of Warcraft.
That's hype though. New expansion. I mean, even if the characters look kind of wacky, at least it's a new class and it seems kind of interesting. And having new WoW content is like.
Not until next year though.
Well, it gives you more time to grind. Wait, no, you're done grinding the goblins, right? Because they fucking or what was it?
I have to do two more goblins. I have 2 more goblins to do.
You got a year. Good luck.
I got a year to do 2 more goblins. But anyways, I got bad news for the podcast.
I saw this topic. I'm about to get sad.
I got bad news. I think the new Lego Star Wars game is bad. And I know every single review that you've read or watched says it's good. And I'm like, I think it's bad. Me and my brother did all of episode 1. Okay.
Yeah.
And now Now, the key differences between this version of Lego Star Wars and the old version of Lego Star Wars is that in the new version of Lego Star Wars, they have these huge, gigantic, like explorable open worlds, which is cool and fantastic. But the thing is that Lego Star Wars at its core has always been a cooperative experience, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? All of the stuff in this new version, in this open world, can be done solo. And it's meant to be done solo because there's a split screen option on the game.
Oh, you're talking about the fucking Lego split screen. I had to deal with this too when I was a kid. It fucked me up. I hated that shit.
Okay?
Yeah. Did you ever play Lego Star Wars 3?
The Clone Wars?
Yeah.
No.
It had that. That's from that game. That's a feature.
Yeah, I played this one, and, like, the explorable worlds are cool, but, like, they're nothing compared to, like, the handcrafted 15 to 20 minute levels that you had in the original games. Like, for example, me and my brother would play a level, and the levels take, like, 3 minutes now. They take 3 to 5 minutes. Whereas, like, originally, they were, like, 15 to 20 minute experiences that you went through, right? And they're just not that anymore. And I don't know, we've only done all of episode 1, but, like, to me, it just feels like they've gone into a completely different direction, and that's fine, you know? But for me personally, this is not the direction I wanted it to go. I wanted, like, handcrafted 15 to 20 minute levels with lots of depth and, like, fun stuff to do, right?
Not just like a big world with stuff.
The other gripes I have with it is that enemies die too quickly. So the Devil May Cry combat is, you're about to be like, oh shit, this combo, and then the guy dies, and you're like...
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that's one of the... Because I've been seeing the combo videos, right? And it's like, button, button, launcher, button, 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 and then they die, and I'm like, where's the bombo? Like, are you telling me I can just kill Kid Anakin over and over? I mean, that's cool. I like beating up Kid Anakin, but like, I mean, like, why? Like, this is dumb. Like, they should have more health.
Oh, boss fights are worse now.
Really?
Like, yeah, in co-op mode, one player gets to do cool stuff while the other player just watches.
Why?
They have it designed where, like, the second player can't do damage to the boss on certain parts.
They're just locked out of it, or?
Like, you'll hit them and it just won't do damage. Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. Like, I'm hoping it gets better, but again, we've only completed episode 1. But, like, this is, like, what happened to us in episode 1. Not to mention, like, the story pacing is, like, lightning quick.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, we want you getting through this.
I mean, which it wasn't like in the
Lego original. Wars, it was fast, but like the thing is that like I'm talking about like take how fast Lego Star Wars was and 2 times it. Like do what Conway does whenever he watches a YouTube video. That's how fast I'm talking.
The thing is too, it has dialogue. So like on top of it really fast pacing, you have dialogue now. So it's like
yeah. So they'll literally put like things that happen in like 6 scenes into 1 scene. Like, for example, you'll meet Anakin's mother in 1 scene, and then you'll meet Watto in the same scene, and then you'll gamble for Anakin's slave ownership in the same scene.
Holy shit, that's pretty fast.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Where it's like, in the original, like, the pacing was quick, but it wasn't like, we're fast forwarding.
Yeah, you got time. Yeah. That's interesting. I wanted to buy the game, but I was like, that was my main thing. It's like, I think the combat system is cool, but it doesn't really seem like it's applicable to anything. So why would I buy the game? Like, when I could just, watch the combos or shit. It didn't really appeal to me. If the game has the versus mode, though, I might have to drop that 60. You know what I'm saying?
It's actually $50.
I might have to drop that 50 then. Better than Melty Blood and the same cost. Fuck that. No RPS in this game. Just bomb them.
But yeah, Lego Star Wars might be bad. I don't know. This is just coming from like my boomer take, where it's like, I don't know. I just really prefer the handcrafted levels from the original.
I also hate the split screen. It's so just
I hated it at first, but I don't really mind it. It's just that like it's more irritating when like we're playing a cooperative experience, but the thing is that like all the puzzles don't require 2 players,
yeah.
right? So it's like what happens is that me and my brother like we literally played the game for like I think 4 hours or something like that. And
Yeah.
literally whenever we got to an open world space, we literally weren't talking to each other. We weren't interacting with each other. We were both just doing separate things because we're both completionists because that's what you do in this game.
Yeah.
So we were like divide and conquer, you know?
Yeah.
But like the thing is that creates a bad game design experience.
For 2
Oh.
players.
Oh, another thing is that they literally have MMO designed objectives in that game.
What?
Yeah, which sort of ruined some of it for me because like I'm a big MMO fan. Okay, we talk about it every week.
Yeah.
But when I play other video games, I'm not trying to play MMO game design. Like for example, there was this objective where we talked to like Captain Tarpals. I don't know if you know who that is.
The guy from he's the one on Naboo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked to Captain Tarpals, and Captain Tarpals is like, "Okay, can you gather 20 bombs?" And literally at the top right of our screen says 0 out of 20 bombs. And I'm like, and literally we gathered all 20 bombs, and it literally made us go back and talk to Captain Tarpals. Like, I don't know how you get anywhere closer to MMO quest design than that.
They're literally
and,
saying,
like,
that's crazy.
Literally the mood of our night went from like pretty okay to just down the minute we did that mission, and we were like, we literally both got off and we were like, okay, I'm getting on at Final Fantasy 14 now.
Man, you want to play MMOs? That's how MMO the quests were. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.
That's fair. I hope the game ends up being better. Keep me and the stream updated about the game down the line because I'm interested in hearing how what you feel about it. I have a couple small things to talk about. Firstly and foremostly, to our, obviously this is a fighting game podcast. Got a new stick, which has been interesting. This is the Itoki Omni, the Sanwa version, and I actually really like this. This is nice. Like, I remember when you told me about the dragon, right? I feel like I made the right call buying it. Because this stick is all metal, and it feels so fucking nice to play on. Like, every button press, everything on it, I feel like I can mash on this thing and not worry about a single thing. Like, this thing will be fine. Only thing I don't like about it, or that I've had problems with, is, that every fighting game stick has, like, a dust washer? This one didn't go all the way in. So it would if I screwed on the ball top too hard, I couldn't move the stick. Which was really fucking weird. So I ended up having to take it off. But once I did, the joystick's fine. And then the other thing is, this is a Noir layout. Normally I play on Vuelix, because I have a Razer Panthera. So doing certain things with these buttons, like plinking in marble, because you do it like this, right, is like really weird for me now. And then these are my assist buttons in Skullgirls. So it's taken some getting used to, but I actually really like it because it's way smaller than the Panthera. It's lighter, but it feels a lot nicer. And the modding on this is like super easy. I can very easily unscrew these and then put art on it, and I don't have to worry about like buying new plexi or anything like that, which is really nice too. Only other thing is I'm probably gonna have to take one of my Yu-Gi-Oh mats and put it on the bottom of this so it doesn't move. Like, I'm gonna unscrew these and then put a Yu-Gi-Oh mat on here so I could just like put it on my lap and play. But yeah, this is a really, really nice stick, and I'm very happy with it. And I got it shipped in from Korea, and it came in like a week, and that was like really nice. I was like, oh shit, this is cool. And now I have a stick. If I need to teach someone how to play a game, I can we got 2 sticks here at my house, so I can play with them. That's really cool. Yeah, I thought it was originally I was like very nervous. I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is the right investment or this is a good thing to do. Even if my other stick is working perfectly fine, I'm very happy I have this. This is really nice. And playing on Sanwa buttons again is like its own thing. I like the Cherry MX switches and like the crown buttons, but like there's a certain feel to Sanwa buttons. It's like its own thing, right? You feel it. How many sticks do you own? A lot of sticks, or do you just have the one?
I own 2.
Is there one that you always play on and one that you just never play on, or do you like?
Yeah, I play on my 1 in 300 Guilty Gear stick. Pretty much all the time, ever since I got it. My old stick is a Comba Q4.
I'm gonna look that up. Actually.
It was the blue and yellow one that I bought.
Oh, these it's like the crystal design, but oh, these are cool. Yeah, I've seen these like in a couple different. Yeah, did it come with Sama buttons on the Kwamba stick? That's cool. But yeah,
Yeah. So did my Guilty Gear stick. It came with Sama buttons.
have you ever thought about swapping them out for like gamer fingers or anything like that?
No. If I ever like do anything with this stick, I'll just be like, I need a new stick.
That's fair. I respect. So yeah, I just wanted to show the new stick and say if you guys are looking for a kind of higher end stick and you're okay with paying like $300 because shipping to Korea, hey, the Omni's pretty good. I like it. It also has a thing for Korean levers, so if you play on Korean lever, this is probably the best stick you can. I was actually thinking about buying it Korean, but I remember you telling me don't fucking buy 8-gate. 8-way gate is dog shit. I've played on 8-way gate before, and
eight-way gate is okay if you have a specific purpose for it, but if you don't, then
it's just not worth the switch, right?
the 8-way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other thing I had to talk about today, and you will be very happy to hear about this. I think this is actually gonna make your day. So as you guys know, I've been getting into this game, the Hero Academia card game, right? Because my locals, after 6 months of the game being out, finally got the product, and I have talked multiple times, I think, about how excited I am for the game. I've been playing online and stuff, and I finally got my booster box, opened it up with my girlfriend. It was a really awesome experience. I and my local was hoping to run tournament, right? And usually my local scene or the locals I work at, right? My coworkers are usually very like apprehensive about running new games. They're like it's not Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not Pokemon, no one's gonna show up, right? Especially the guy that runs Yu-Gi-Oh, he's like, bro, Digimon, dead game. Pokemon, dead game. Nobody plays. They're dog shit. Only Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm like, bro, what the fuck? But I have hope. I have hopium, and I believed in the game, right? I talked to my coworkers who do Pokemon, my manager, and he's like, bro, fucking do it. Go for it. We have time at 12 on Sundays. Just run it. You're here. I'm like, okay. My boss, I went and did research, and I found out, okay, this is how you get organized play. Submitted a ticket, submitted everything. Talked to my boss. He was like, oh, yeah, for sure. Do you need my help? I'm like, no, I already got it all done. He's like, oh, perfect. Yeah, dude, go for it. Like, sure. Like, who cares, right? Because they're just like, I mean, if you bring people in the store, it's not getting in the way of anybody. Like, who cares, right?
If you bring business, you know?
Exactly, right? I went and emailed the company. They were totally cool with it. And on top of that, this is what's hype. In Southern California, I don't know if you're aware, but we have maybe I want to say the best card store in all of the U.S. here. It's not the store I work at. Though the store I work at is incredible. Guys should go. Legacy Cards are coming. But the Yu-Gi-Oh Mecca, as it were, in terms of like card stores, in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh, we have the biggest one or the most prolific one, which is Core TCG. They're very well known for having like a shit ton of Yu-Gi-Oh product from like all over the years, right? And their tournaments are really big. A lot of the people that work there and go there for tournaments are multi-time, like, you know, YCS toppers, or they've won YCSs and stuff. So there's a lot of like Yu-Gi-Oh culture that's kind of in that. And it's one of the bigger stores in California. There's also another store called Odyssey, and both of them are in Pasadena, and they're both stores that run My Hero Academia in terms of like they have the product. After college one day, decided to stop by both places, right? Do a little bit of sleuthing because I heard that Odyssey is the only place that does tournaments for My Hero Academia. I went and talked to one of the employees, and he said, "Oh, it's not a tournament. We're just a session. People come in." And I'm like, "How many people do you get?" He's like, 4 to 6. Went to Core TCG, and they were like, "Oh, we're not running tournaments until set 2 drops, which is May 6th." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so I left, and I'm like, "So what you're saying is there might be a chance?" No, I did say that, but I realized that if Legacy were to host tournaments for this, we would be the only people in Southern California, to my knowledge, in the area that host tournaments for My Hero Academia, the card game. And the Southern California scene for anime card games is fucking ridiculous. So I was like, there may be a chance that if I do this, it's like big, because I can also put it up on the Discord for people to see. So it's like a big tournament, you know, we're giving out prizes or whatever. come to find out, some people from Core TCG come to our store a while ago. Friends of ours from Dragon Ball days, Dragon Ball card game. I'm talking to one of them there, and I was telling him like, "Oh, you play the game?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm playing Ochako," and we're talking back and forth about it. And he's like, "Yeah, all of the old Dragon Ball players play." I'm like, "You guys do?" I'm like, "Where do you guys play?" And they're like, "Oh, we just go to Core and we sit down every Saturday at like 1 play." There's no tournaments. We force them to host tournaments. We just force them to like have us sit down and play. I'm like, "How many people?" Is like, "It's 8," and like it's all the regulars that like normally used to come to Legacy. I'm like, "Oh, I was thinking about hosting tournaments on Sundays." He's like, "Dude, if you do, we'll all come." I'm like, "For real?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, all of us live closer to here than we do to Core. So why would we go to Core to play a game if there's no tournament there, right?" So I have a tournament store, a time that's free, 8 people for the local, and I have product, hopefully. The only worry is that if Set 2 drops, I might not get the product soon, but I think we will. And if that happens, I will be the sole local TO of a popular.
You'll be the king of My Hero.
I told my girl, I'm like, I think I'm just the champion of Hero Academia, right? It might be possible, right? Now, granted, there might be other stores running smaller scale events, and that could happen, but they would announce it on the Discord, and I have not seen anything about it anywhere. On all the tournament store locators, nothing, right? Turn Zero hosts it on Turn Zero Cards and Games, which is a big anime store here, doesn't host tournaments for the game either. So realistically, it's just us, which is like crazy cool. If I start doing this, I'll keep everyone updated, but I might have to follow in your footsteps and become a TO. That's my role now. It's passing that. The Prodigy now. I have to move on, and I have to become my own team. I have to host my own. It's gonna be so sick. I'm very excited about this because this is like a new prospect for me. I've never TO'd before. I know it's hard and thankless labor, but at least it's for a game I love. And the people I know are consistent, and I know are like super chill. So at the very least, we'll have a very competitive and local, which is really cool. That's always something you love. So yeah, future updates for that to come, and I'll let you guys know. I think the first tournament will probably be not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after, if they get back to me. So I'll keep everyone updated. But yeah, I think that's everything for our show this week. I think we've got through all of our topics. So yeah, anything else you have to add about anything, Bryce?
Please update the Drakthir textures for the love of God.
The Drakthir textures?
They're called Drakthir.
That's the race name?
Yeah, that's the race name. They're called Drakthir, and the class is Evoker.
Why is it an Invoker?
Maybe they should evoke some intelligence. Okay?
Maybe I should invoke some artists.
Yeah.
Get those motherfuckers in the studio drawing.
Dude, I could call the artists for FNAF, and they'd come up with a better dragon design.
Kind of spitting that. You're kind of spitting. I would like to see that. It would look more realistic. Yeah, I agree with you. Get better models. And
also make it so that I can fly my pureblood Dragonhawk with the physics.
The swooping and the
yeah. Because the pureblood Firehawk is like sick as hell, but it has like a standard like.
Just like a bird.
Like a bird, and I'm like, this is cool, but it could be cooler.
Yeah, I hope they add those mount mechanics to a lot of different. So that would be cool. That would be kind of weird if they just only did it for dragons, but
you'd be surprised.
For real?
Yeah, you have to understand that for the past 3 expansions, they've introduced a system mechanic that spans the entire expansion, and then they just abandon it next expansion.
What the fuck? It's Pokemon. That's tragic.
But worse, because these things infect the entire world.
That's tragic. That's actually so sad. Oh, man. Well, hopefully the dragons are cool at least. And at least...
That's literally my thought on it. I hope the dragons are cool.
I hope the dragons are cool. They're dragons, maybe.
And on that bombshell.
Yeah. I've been Doppio, Daniel, whatever you like to call me.
And I have been Bounty.
And ladies and gentlemen, that has been episode 11 of the Frame Trap Podcast. See you hopefully same time, same place next week. We'll keep you guys updated. Check our Twitter. Oh, and before we forget, where can the good people find you?
Oh, they can find me, Mr. Bounty X Hunted on YouTube. That's where I post all the VODs for this. So if you missed the live show, you can watch it later there. Also, you can find me at BountyXHunted on Twitter. Be warned, please be careful if you follow me. That's all I gotta say.
Don't show your kids his Twitter.
Yeah, basically.
I learned the hard way. And on my end, as always, we stream this on my Twitch.
Doppio23.
Doppio_23. At twitch.tv/Doppio_23. You can follow my Twitter at Shotobo23. And Instagram, same dealio, Shotobo23. Mirio Togata, or just my name. Yeah, you can find us on all those socials, and yeah, we do the show every week. If you're watching, we try to do it every week when we can. We do get busy sometimes. And yeah, if you're watching this on the stream, please feel free to tune into Bounty's YouTube and watch our previous episodes or watch this current one. And if you're watching from YouTube, feel free to tune in whenever we go live. I always tweet out the notification. So yeah, with that being said, I think that's everything for this week. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.